Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is in Management of Operations, BUSN 6630, Section E01, Summer 2021. It's the Memo-1 answers, which is in business forecasting. So let's bring up the assignment. This is the assignment memo that everyone is probably very familiar with. Alice and Andrew Anderson have successfully operated a Speedy Pizza in a popular ski area in Colorado. They believe sales have been increasing in both dine-in and carry-out, and the carry-out business seems to be presenting problems. And so the whole point of this is we give you the data. I give you the data here for 4 years worth of data. And then I say analyze the Andersons' problem and requests. Their requests are, they have asked us for a monthly forecast of the carry-out pizza. So there's the first request. And then along with some insights of the nature of the demand. And I gave a video on how to calculate the forecast, so you should have them. And we talked about different insights you could introduce into your memo and your communication. And so the analysis, we had the analysis. I gave you different analysis to pick from. So it's up to you to actually put it together, produce it, create a memo, and create communication. Prepare a response memo to them. And now this response memo is to the client. It wasn't to me, it's to them. Adequately and appropriately responding to their requests, which up here there were 2 of them. And prepare a separate technical memo to me. The technical memo was to me. And I want to point out that this is technical. And some people really got the response memo and the technical memo mixed up. The response memo was technical. They don't want to know how you solved it. They want to know what the answer is and what they need to do to run their company. They don't want the details. Now, as far as the technical is concerned, I will want to know, how did you solve it? How did you do it? And so there's where you don't just say, well, I just use regression. Or I use, some people said, the wrong terms. And so here you say, here is exactly how I did it. Okay, first I did this, I used these equations, I did this, and some people even gave the tables, and that's perfectly fine too. But as long as you explain them. The other thing, you need technical information. Some people gave memos, some people explained it. The second, it's a memo. It is not a table of data, a table of calculations, a graph. It's a memo. Now a memo is words, explaining it, describing it, and actually giving equations or explaining the procedure on how you did it. Okay, and then prepare video presentations again to the Andersons. A few of them were to me. I'm not the one running the company, the Andersons are. And so you tell them what they need to know. And so be very, very careful in business. Again, this is just a comment. Be very careful in business to know your audience. What do they want to know? What do they need to know? And tell them just what they need to know and what they want to know so they can move forward. Okay, let's get into it. As we come down here, I've already mentioned this before. Here are the monthly forecast and insights. They've asked us, sales have been increasing. They've asked us for monthly forecast and insights, okay? And so then the demand for carrot is volatile, and this is called supply problem. So that gives an insight on why they want to know this information. So this is why we're giving this information. Not just to say, here's your forecast. No, the insights is saying, here's what you can do to address your supply problems. And many people did that. And by the way, a lot of these memos were very, very good. I was very pleased to see the quality. It was very good quality. The demand for the carryout seems volatile, and this has caused problems in supply problems. Okay, first of all, they gave us monthly data. Use all the data provided. Do not aggregate unless for a purpose. Every once in a while, people will aggregate, say, the first quarter, and then the second quarter, then the third quarter and fourth quarter. And that's fine, as long as you give them a monthly forecast. Some people do annual, just to see the trend. That's fine too, as long as you give a monthly forecast. And then the analysis is present analysis along with your results. And I want to emphasize the difference between an analysis and results. An analysis is not saying, here's your forecast. That is not an analysis. An analysis says, here's your forecast, here's how it increases, here's how it decreases, here's what it means to you, here's what you need to see, that type of thing. And I can say that, I want to be complete. Most people did do that, and they did a very good job. Some details here in memos. Use of decimals, in this case, indicates detail not able to support. You're in the thousands here. 8,258 here. Every once in a while I get people say, oh, the forecast is 8,300.2. What is a 0.2 of a pizza over a month when you're talking about thousands? It's detailed that you can't say, oh, is it 0.2 or 0.3? What's the difference? There is no difference. Then why are you telling it? So be very careful in business to only report the important information, not information that's not important, that muddies the waters, that's confusing. Use only a visual for a purpose that has value and address the purpose. Quite often people will say, here's my graph. Why am I looking at the graph? What value is it? What's the purpose? And so you don't just give graphs, you don't give visual representations just because you can. You do it with a purpose, and that purpose must have a value, and you must present it in that way. Present your visuals clearly. Limit abbreviations. Present near the text, label, title, etc. And notice what I'm saying here. I say limit abbreviations. That's really conservative. Really, I mean that's correct. But really, I would say don't even use abbreviations. Spell everything out. There's no doubt. You might have a CEO or a VP or a C-level guy or gal. They may be coming in looking at this, and their mind is, they've been talking the past 3 days in IT or the last 3 days in economics, and all of a sudden you have abbreviations in forecasting and operations. Okay, don't abbreviate anything. Just list everything out. Present near the text. Quite often you'll have text up here, and then the graph is down here, or the visual is down here. They go, oh, you're doing this. Don't require your audience to do this all the time. Have everything right there. If the visual is there, and you'll see some of the examples. I'll show you some examples in a minute. Label, title, and make sure that it's clear. Some people just have a graph. What is this graph of? So you label it, you title it, and minimize the amount of labels and titles. And also in a title, I didn't say it here, but in a title and a graph must have a purpose, and that purpose or the objective or the takeaway should be the title. Don't just say data or time series. In other words, in business communications, and this is my opinion, is that you have a graph here, and you'll see a bunch of graphs here, and I'll mention it too when we start looking at some examples. You have a graph, and you say, the sales is increasing with a seasonal component. It shall continue to increase. So that's the title. They will read that, they'll see the graph, and immediately they'll know what it is. So you're not requiring them to try to interpret your graph or try to figure out why you're showing it. You tell them why you're showing it. That's your title. Responses for your results. Technical is for your approach. Don't mix. I've already mentioned that. Don't mix them. A lot of people did mix them. The response was more of a technical memo, and the technical was more of a response memo. The response is, here's the results. Here's what you need to know moving forward. The technical is saying, here is exactly how I did it, step by step by step. Here's what I did to do it. Here's the equations. You don't have to work it all out, but you have to explain every step that you did as you went through. Coordinate the response in technical memos. Sometimes I didn't do it, not this semester, but sometimes I have a response memo that'll talk about something, and the technical memo will talk about something else. They don't really coordinate. Now, here I use this average. Over here I didn't use an average. I analyzed this and calculated this. But then where'd you get the average? And so they need to coordinate. The technical needs to support the response memo. In technical, only present approach to solution, not steps that do not apply. Sometimes people say, oh, well, how I solved this, I did this, it didn't work, so I abandoned it. I did this, that didn't work, so I didn't do that. I did, so everything, and then finally, you said the last step, and finally, I used decomposition that worked. Well, the whole technical memo then is everything that you didn't do. It should be everything that you did. Here's what I did. I used a decomposition. I did this. I got the trend. I got this. I got this. I got this. And you explain exactly how you did it. Okay, there's some general comments. Now let's look at some results here. Now to solve this thing, what I did, I generated the data. And then I generated the random number generator. And so here's the slope. Here's the indexes. And this is the blocking. So when you do it this way, this is the forecast blocking. These are the actual true forecast with no error. Now I know what the true forecasts are because I generated this and then threw in random error. So you can see what the error is. The max is 3.3% error. It's 0.3, this is percent, 0.3% error. You can see from 7312 to 7330, and that's really small. So the reason this is so small is because of blocking, and you only have 4 years of monthly data. It's only 48 data points. Okay, and then I plotted it with a line plot, plotted it with a stack, and we'll see in a minute. A lot of people use both of these. I seasonally adjusted it, and there's the trend. It's a nice continuous trend. Nobody mentioned that, which is fine. Again, a retail situation usually has either continuous trends, different types of contract industries. High-tech contract industries will have step functions. And then other industries will have sinusoidal or sigmoid type those, the sigmoid trends. But we don't get into that in this course. That's a little bit more advanced. Okay, but there's other methods, alternative methods. I used a filtering approach. I didn't mention. I say don't use it because there's only 48 data points. Because if you do, notice the percent error is a little bit greater. Why? Because there's only 48 data points. Well, if you had 180, 100, 200 data points, then these percentages are getting closer and closer to the blocking percentages. They get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, that's one alternative. Another alternative is the average annual increase. In other words, from 2017 to 2018, that increase is here. 18 to 19 is here. 19 to 20 is here. I just took the differences is all I did. 8897 minus 6597 is 2300. So I took these annual differences and then I averaged each month. Then I took this average, add it to 2020, and that's my forecast. And notice those percent errors are really small, are very, very small. So this is a very good method. Well, why is this method just averaging so good? Because, and this is when you get used to it, you get a feel for the answers. Because the amount of error, this is very consistent pattern, very consistent trend, very consistent trend. So when you have very little error, and by the way, my random number generators are very small, when you do that, then you can get away with these alternative methods just taking the average. As a matter of fact, instead of taking an average of the yearly increase, down here, I just took the annual increase in just the last interval. Just 2020 to 2019, that was the last interval. I add that to 2020, and notice those percentages are fairly small too. Interesting. So when the error is small, you can get away with doing some quick and dirty things. So that's why you always plot the data first, start decomposing to see what kind of error you have. And if it's a minimal error, then you can get away with some alternative methods that are very quick and dirty. And they're easy to do, easy to program, and easy to manage, and easy to communicate. Okay. So let's get into some examples. So now this is the information. These are the answers. These are the forecasts. But then how do you communicate it? Okay, now let me get part two. Let me give some examples. Now what I did here, I blocked out the names. Let me do this. There we go. I blocked out the names, and it doesn't matter what they're saying. I'm looking at the format and how they formatted the response memo. I didn't do the technical memo. I probably should have, but I'm just going to focus on the response memo. The technical memo, you'll get used to that internally because every organization is different. But these are different ways of communicating to a client. Okay, real quick. Here's the first one. Here's a forecast, a line plot with the forecast over here highlighted. And by the way, all these are good. They're all good. One's not any better than the next. They're all good. Every once in a while, I'll mention some things like this could be done a little bit better, but it's not bad. And I would certainly send this off for my company. Any of these are great, are fine. Okay, executive summary, analysis, results. So there's the results. There's a forecast, and there's the trend with the seasonality, and down here they analyze it and they talk about it. So that was good. The next one, they do pretty much the same thing. Here the forecast with a line plot, but they highlight the forecast here, which is kind of nice. Now this one, forecast insights recommendations, and both of these separate out analysis and results. Sometimes people like that organization. Some people just like a paragraph. They'll figure it out. So it really depends on the reader. Both of these are fine. Both of these are fine. The next one, it goes to a stack plot. And so a lot of people did use stacked plots, which is perfectly fine. So there's their forecast. There's a stack plot. You can see the pattern. You can see the trend and the insights, and they talk about it. Okay. And the next one, let's see what I do in the next one. Okay, this one, I'm so glad someone did this. This one, the forecast, they use bullets. And my experience is that some people love bullets. Some people hate bullets. Know your audience. I'm so glad they did this. And you know, it doesn't matter to me whether you use them or not. So it does say exactly the forecast, exactly the month. And so using bullets. And then down here is a stack plot. So the stack plot, the forecast up here is the insight. And also notice, even though they talk about the insights up here and the takeaways and the analysis, it's very, very, very minor. They don't go into a lot of detail. But what they do say is perfectly fine. So sometimes this succinctness, especially with bullets, they say, just tell me what I need to know. Okay, let me move forward. So sometimes this is exactly what people want to see. Okay, the next one. Okay, now this one, I picked this one, and notice they have the forecast with a stack plot and a business insights moving forward. I like that. Monthly forecast, this is a good one too. But what they did, they also listed the data. Now, the data is perfectly fine because then the data, you can see it down here, as long as you have a reason for the data. And you can say, oh, this plot, a reason for all the plots, all the actual data points. In other words, these data points can see the numbers. These numbers here can be plots on the data, and make sure that, okay, why am I looking at the data? Why am I looking at the plot? And that's what the insights and moving forward is supposed to look at. So there's nothing wrong with giving all the data. But if you do, make sure that you are very clear on why you gave them all the data. Why are they looking at the data? Why are you giving me what I gave you? Oh, that's why you're giving it to me. So here's what you gave me, and then you identify something in there to move forward, which is perfectly fine. Okay, the next one. Yeah, I did this one because it's a stack plot. This one also has pretty much everything was said correctly. It was said very well. But in addition to the data and the forecast over here on the right, they also gave the slope, the index, the intercept. They gave all the detail in here. Okay, and they also gave annual sales moving forward, increasing down here. and the growth of 20%. And so they gave a lot more information. And this is perfectly fine, especially if the Andersons, if Allison and Andrew Anderson are very technical. If they're not technical, they don't want to see this. And they say, oh no, they get really nervous if people do not understand slope, if they do not understand intercept, if they do not understand what a seasonal index is. This will make some people very nervous. Like, oh no, how do I use that? What am I supposed to do with 1.61 versus 1.41? And this is 0.3. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And if you know your audience and the Andersons are not technical, don't give them all this information, because it's going to make them nervous, confused, and it lowers the value of your communication. So you just give them just give them the forecast. But if they are quantitative, you can give them, if they understand regression, then you can say, okay, here's the intercept, here's the slope, here's the indexes. So there's nothing wrong with this. So I'm just using this as a springboard to say, if you do use this, make sure you're giving it to the right audience. Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, I like this one. This is a good one. They gave a stack plot, but they gave the forecast actually in the graph. And so the Andersons can actually see, not only see the numbers, but see the graph on it's increasing and it's decreasing and it's increasing. Most people said that, but they showed that either in a table or they showed it in a graph. But this one, this student actually put the numbers in the graph. So I like this. So, and also the description was very good. Now, one thing you got to be careful of is if it's a digital memo, this is perfectly fine. If it's a paper memo, this black background sometimes doesn't transfer well to a memo. You want black on white or black on some parchment, but the black here, I mean the black as far as the numbers are concerned, but the whole black here will eat up your ink and everything, and sometimes people don't like that at all. Okay, just a point in passing, but I really like what they did, and this does look very good. And notice I used shadowing, and it looks really sharp, really sharp. That was well done. Okay, and then people began doing both. And they said, okay, there's the forecast, there's a line plot with a trend, there's a stack plot, and so they started using both of them. Okay, and then this one used both. And they gave the data down here. Notice they gave the data along with the slope, intercept, index, this kind of thing. So not only give the data, they gave the plots up here, and they gave pretty much a lot. Okay, and the description is fairly small. Again, if some people want to see it, they'll see what you're saying, but they want to convince themselves. Okay, and then let's see what's the next one. Okay, I picked this one because a couple of things. One, the description is right next to the graphs, which I really like. They had a line plot with a forecast highlighted here, a stack plot with a forecast highlighted in green, and then down here, color coded with the high and the low, the green and the red, and the peak, average, low. So they gave a lot of information. So this is very well produced, especially with people who this can appeal to many people who are very visual. They can see the graphs, they can see it very visual. So again, this was another one that was well done for the right audience. Okay, and then let's see, what's the next one? Okay, this one, I have the forecast, I have a line plot with an arrow, that's kind of cool, and then a stack plot, that was good, and the bullets was here, and here is just the actual forecasted carry-out sales, okay, for 2021. So they plotted just the forecast up here, and plotted the numbers here on that plot. And this plot was just for the trend. This plot was for the seasonality. So this person really divided things up, formatted it well, produced it well, and used bullets So this one kind of put everything on one page. So you can do things on one page. Again, it was very well produced, very well organized in this. And so I think that's all I have. Yeah. So my point here is this is what I wanted. This is why I didn't tell people, here's an example. Because I didn't want people to say, oh, I got to do it that way. No, you don't. Because if you learn one way to do it at a university, that might be applicable in maybe 1% of the businesses out there because they're varied. So when you walk in, you saw a lot of examples here. One example that was not here was there was no graph, there was no table. All it was a paragraph with all the forecast embedded in a paragraph. And I do get that sometimes, and that's good. Some people want to see it that way. So my point is, in business, you know what you want to communicate. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. Which way do you pick? It depends on the information, what you want to communicate, and your audience. What's the best way to communicate with them? Communication is part of business, and there should be more about communications, because knowing the right answer really isn't that valuable. Actually, it's not valuable at all if you can't communicate it. If you know the answer but no one else does, then what good is it? It's good as nothing. Okay, so communication is really valuable, and sharing it and communicating in such a way that people can use it and takeaways. So that's all I have for this Memo 1 Answers Business Forecasting. I hope this helps. Between now and the next time I see you, take care.